what we're going to look at today is stop and search. Basically, so this is something we've seen increase rate in Somerset over the past few years by around 38%. 2020 to 2021, it increased by 38%, and it's one of the most controversial and well used and criticised police powers. And there's a lot of concern police stop and search powers used incorrectly or unfairly. So people can feel like they've been stopped and searched for no reason. In my life, I've been stopped and searched for over 50 times. Being a mixed race black guy, basically, I was racially profiled. I went through the cycle. I made my mistakes, but also I've been disproportionately targeted by the police and stopped and searched by them as well. So it is a power that we see effectively primarily hitting working class communities, but also it affects other people as well. It's quite a widely spread, but disproportionately affecting racialised communities. So that's really where some of the concerns lie, in particular areas like London as well. And Thames Valley Police as well, obviously, might as well be the extension of that, right? And they Police Oxford, their second biggest police force, from what I understand, other than the Met in the UK. There's two kinds of stop and search. You have suspicion-based stop and search, and you have suspicionless stop and search. Could you move on to the next slide? So suspicion-based stop and search, what we're looking at there. So this is basically section 1 of the Police and Crime Evidence Act 1984, or PACE as it's known, and also section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. So if you're carrying drugs, weapons, stolen property, or something that can be used for crime, police will basically say they can search you. If they've got reasonable grounds for any of those reasons, they will basically say we can stop and search you. But it always has to be on reasonable grounds. It can never be because they have an issue with you or because you're known to them. That's effectively unlawful. Yeah, but what the police are meant to be doing and what the police actually do on the street are very much two different things. You can move on to the next slide, that'd be good. So reasonable grounds, what does that look like? So what we would all think was fair, okay, so that means you can't be stopped for no reason. You cannot be stopped because of your appearance, and you can't be stopped for having a criminal record. It's effectively unlawful if you're known to the police to be targeted by them. That's happened to me, and they will do that to people. Yeah, they have problems with, they harass people, but legally you have a leg to stand on. If they start targeting you for being known to them, that's something they're not going to be doing, right? So again, it's just being stopped for no reason they can't do, and again, physical appearance and having a criminal record as well. If you move on to the next slide, that'd be good. The police, when they stop and search people, or if they stop and search you on the street, are meant to operate under what's called Go Wisely. So what does that mean? So Go Wisely, G stands for grams, a clear explanation for the reason of the search. Object, what the officer will be looking for. Warrant, a warrant card can be produced. The officer's not in uniform. Identities, the officer must state their name and their collar number. Station, they always need to say where they're based. An entitlement, and they need to say if it's a PACE stop, you can have a receipt. So at the end of the search, basically, you can ask for a receipt. And if you're being harassed by the police and you're getting stopped 7 times in a week, I would say absolutely keep the receipts because those are evidence of police harassment. I know some people that have been stopped 7 times in a week, and then they go make a complaint, and then police start targeting their family or start targeting their brother and sister. But at the end of the day, if you have a catalogue of these stops happening, right, you can then potentially be turned around to a solicitor, or you have a very strong complaint against the officers in particular, especially if it's the same police again and again. If it's the same cops targeting you, then that's definitely police harassment. You know full well they have an issue with you. Yeah, effectively, Go Wisely is how they're meant to operate, or it's a sort of legislation, if you will. So the legislation which moves on to legal, the officer must specify the legislation on which they're searching you. They must clearly explain you're being detained for the purpose of the search. So if you're stopped by the police on the street, the first thing you should say is, am I being detained, officer, or am I free to go? And if the cop says to you, you're free to go, then I would just say just walk off calmly as you can and just keep walking, and you don't have to answer any questions. Obviously, if they say you're being detained, they need to explain why you're being stopped and searched and what their grounds are for that search. So it needs to be explained to you clearly. And it's not a magic spell, as it says here, but it is something it's not a magic spell basically that the police can use as a shield against a valid complaint or claims for damages. And searches must be based on objective reasonable suspicion. So even if the police go through the go wisely procedure completely how they should, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was lawful grounding for for a stop and search, because the underlying reasons may be something, it could be like racial discrimination, it could be anything else, just targeting somebody because they don't like the look of them and that kind of stuff. There could be all kinds of stuff sitting behind that, and even though it seems like a normal search, it may not be. So even if it seems by the book and you feel you should challenge it, don't ever be afraid to assert your rights and tell the police, I don't agree with what you're doing, or you can then maybe make a complaint. And if you stop consistently, just complain and complain. I would say complain and complain. Don't be like a serial complainer, but absolutely make sure that you're saying, no, I don't think what you've done is right. We can help with manage complaints for people as well. We do that within Open Somerset anyway, the police set. Did you move on to the next slide? So suspicionless stop and search is what we'll look at next. Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act allows a police officer to stop and search a person without suspicion. And police don't need reasonable grounds to stop and search you. And Section 60 only takes place if authorised by senior officer. Now, since the police court sentencing and crime bill came into play, the authorisation has moved up from 24 hours up to 72 hours. And the Section 60 will only come into play, well, it should be only coming into play if there's been a serious violence incident or they suspect something like that is going to happen. Usually what will happen is, when we see these happen in communities like Tottenham in Harrogate in London, it's usually very sad because there's been an incident of serious violence and the police decide to blanket stop and search everyone. And Section 60 is effectively a disproportionate and incredibly racist power. It disproportionately targets black people or people of colour in general, especially in areas like Tottenham and Harrogate. And what it says is, because you fit description, we are going to stop you. You may have never had a run-in with the police at all once before in your life, and you could get stopped and searched under Section 60 simply because you're just walking down the road and they're looking for somebody who fits your description. Yeah, so it's something that we're protected by, we're protected against, because we should be treated fairly under the Equalities Act. And the Equalities Act protects everybody in this room. We're all protected by it. Yeah, there isn't anything, when you say I think the Equalities Act's been breached, police need to take that seriously. And you have around 6 months to make a claim under the Equalities Act if you feel you were discriminated against under Section 60 stop and search. And unlike PACE, where you get given a receipt in the street, you'll get given a written statement if you write to the police, if you reply within a year. So Section 60 can now be up to 72 hours. Usually if a Section 60 is in place, the police will announce that on the social media. So if something happens within Oxford, within this area, Thames Valley Police would know that, say there is now a Section 60 in place. It kind of gives people a heads up, but it also means that there's going to be a lot of stop and search. There's going to be a lot of police harassment. There's a lot of implications.